Dear Livid, it is a pleasure to be moving this important debate this afternoon. Making childhood equal is sadly not something we have excelled at. Article 26 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities state that the parties shall take effective and appropriate measures, including through peer support, to enable persons with disabilities to attain and maintain maximum independence, full physical, mental, social, and vocational ability, and full inclusion and participation in all aspects of life. To that end, states parties shall organize, strengthen, and extend comprehensive habilitation and rehabilitation services and programs, particularly in the areas of health, employment, education, and social services, in such a way that these services and programs begin at the earliest possible stage and are based on the multidisciplinary assessment of individuals' needs and strengths. B, support participation and inclusion in the community and all aspects of society are voluntary and are available to persons with disabilities as close as possible to their own communities, including in rural areas. States parties shall promote the development of initial and continuing training for professionals and staff working in habilitation and rehabilitation services. States parties shall promote the availability, knowledge, and use of assistive devices and technologies designed for persons with disabilities as they relate to habilitation and rehabilitation. Despite this obvious duty to provide habilitation support, some local authorities in Wales offer none at all. According to Guide Dog Cymru, large parts of Wales have very poor provision of habilitation training. They believe that there are approximately 2,000 sight-impaired children and young people who would benefit from such training. But what we are talking about here, what is habilitation training? Essentially, it is a way of teaching children and young people with sight loss the skills we all develop early on. A child or a young person who can see typically develops a range of independent skills, such as they grow up with the family. Skills include being able to move around without hurting themselves and being able to get where they want to be safely. Independence skills include the practical and social skills of washing, dressing, eating, drinking, shopping, cooking, and finding friends. Sighted children and young people learn these skills within their families, largely by watching other family members. Children and young people with vision impairment cannot watch and learn in the same way as sighted child. As a result, many key foundation skills may be missed without additional help and support. Habilitation training provides alternative ways of learning using the child or young person's other senses of touch, hearing, taste, smell, and balance. This approach develops a child's early movement skills and is used for children with a range of vision or none. Habilitation in the early years also helps to develop children's awareness of their own bodies, as well as the child's awareness of the space around them when still or moving, and the use of their senses. Habilitation specialists work closely with parents, school staff, and other professionals, as well as one-to-one with child. They are qualified to teach practical strategies and skill to maximize independence and work in both mainstream and specialized settings, as well as in the home and out in the community. Habilitation training maximizes the personal independence of a child or young person with visual needs, as well as help to prepare them for moving on as an independent young adult to college, university, apprenticeship, or work. Last October, I had the pleasure to meet Amy, a young woman who had benefited from the habilitation support from Guide Dogs Cymru. Amy told me how the support she received gave her the confidence to go to university and was even planning a trip to America, a lifelong dream that would not have been possible without habilitation support. Habilitation enables these young people to do the things that we all take for granted, things we all do without a second thought, things that everyone should be able to do, whether that is going out to play with friends or going traveling in your late teens. Without habilitation support for Welsh children and young people, how can we possibly hope to create an equal Wales? If we don't have equality of opportunities, then we don't have equality. Sadly, for visually impaired children and young people in Wales, where you live has a huge impact on our opportunities. There is a postcode lottery for habilitation services. Provisions is very stretched across North Wales, where one specialist covers a very large area. In Ceredigion, Conway, Merthyr Tydfil, Pembrokeshire, there is no service at all. There are just 11.4 full-time equivalent habilitation specialists covering the whole of Wales, well short of what is needed to provide at least one specialist per 100 visually impaired children. As our motion calls for, we need to urgently implement a workforce plan, a strategic commitment to a long-term solution. Whilst we dither and delay, blind and partially sighted children are missing out on vital specialist support to enable them to achieve their full potential. Ministers can find a few £1 million down the back of Welsh Treasury sofa in order to bail out a failing airport. Yet they do nothing to support thousands of visually impaired young people in Wales. I'm also disappointed that the Welsh government have amended our motion to pass the buck onto local government. For years, Welsh ministers have been told that specialist habilitation provision has been lacking, and yet no action has been taken, no plans put in place. We can't leave national planning to local authorities, whilst ministers are ultimately responsible for ensuring councils comply with their duties, as well as ensuring Wales has the workforce needed to provide habilitation support to our young people. I urge colleagues to stand up for visually impaired young people by supporting our motion today and rejecting the government's amendment. With the right workforce plan in place and sufficient habilitation specialists employed to meet the needs of visually impaired children and young people, we can make childhood equal by removing barriers that we non-impaired ironically don't see. We can ensure every visually impaired child in Wales has equality of opportunity and allowed to thrive. Diolch yn fawr.
Rwyf